Yo guys, it's JJ here, and of course by the title of the video, you guys are here to see one of the best beats of all time for Lil Baby's It's Only Me release. And I'm gonna tell you right now, I think this beat's super fire, super Lil Baby-esque, and let's just get straight into this. First of all, we got to have the main melody, and it's obviously, you know, Piano V2 using the preset American Large Studio. And as we all know, Lil Baby loves to use piano presets, so that's why I got this joint up here. As for the melody, very simple, so I'm gonna walk you guys through this. First of all, we got ourselves the root notes, of course. And I copy and pasted it upwards, and I copy and pasted it upwards again. But then I clicked Shift D to reduce the note size. Then the next thing I did was click on the magnet tool and take it down to 1/6 beat, because Lil Baby beats, sometimes, but you can find them, they consist of triplets, and that's how it is. So used 1/6 beat for this, and I came up with this nice repeating pattern, as you guys can see. Really nice. It repeats itself every bar, literally, apart from these root notes. For this section of the melody, which is the second part of the 8 bar, I started off here, and then I did 1 2 3 4 5. That's how we got to where it is. Very simple, very straightforward, but it does the job super nicely. And on top of that, you want to click Alt S to strum any sort of components that are there, such as the root notes, and then click Alt R, and what that does is it'll randomize the velocity for every individual note in the MIDI, so it causes it to sound very human and super dope. So without further ado, this is what the melody sounds like. And there you have it. As for effects, kept it very basic. We got ourselves here an EQ, cutting off all the lows and ducking some frequencies I wasn't a fan of. And on top of that, we got ourselves a nice basic Valhalla vintage verb. And this is the presets I decided to play with. And then last but not least, I stereo separated this around 27%, just to widen the sound a bit, you know, give it a bit of stereo separation, make it sound professional in the mix. The next thing I did for the whole melody was get an instance of Analog Lab 5, and then I used a preset called Aqua Rock, something like that. As for the MIDI, this is what I came up with, and I'll walk you guys through it right now. First of all, came up with these 3 different chords, and essentially just kept the G sharp as the root note, and then played around with the other 2 notes on top of that to create the chord progression. And then on top of that, I just added these 4 different notes to create like some sort of counter on top. So that's how I honestly came up with it. As for this part of the melody, it's essentially the same thing, but I just took it up 5 semitones. So look, 1 2 3 4 5, 1 2 3 4 5, simple as. And then I did a bit of change at the end, because, you know, a little bit of variation doesn't kill anyone, and I played with the counter melody on top as well. And that's everything really. And don't forget, of course, you know, click Alt R to randomize your velocities. And without further ado, this is what the pad sounds like. And there you have it. Very simple, sounds super nice. It has this kind of like trancing feel to it. I really messed with this pad a lot. And as for effects, all I actually did was just whack an EQ. I just thought it was so well made, the sound, that I didn't want to make anything else of it. So just whacked an EQ, cut off a lot of the lows, boosted something I was a fan of, ducked what I wasn't a fan of, and then just got that. And on top of it all, I stereo separated this 45%-ish, just again to widen the sounds, duck it a bit behind in the mix. I didn't want it to stand out too much, but let it do its job well. Next up in the melody, we got ourselves an instance of Omnisphere, and I used a preset called Choir Woman. Pretty straightforward. And it's a choir. So because I chose the sound, what I did was I copy and pasted over the pattern from before onto here. And the reason I thought the choir would be really good is because sound selection is key. You got Lil Baby on this boy. You know he needs a bit of piano on there. And then what complements a piano well alongside the pad? Choir. So got myself a choir, copy and pasted it, and there we are. What I also did, as you guys can see, I took it down the whole octave, so the frequencies doesn't clash with the frequencies of the pad or even the piano for that instance. And without further ado, this is what the choir sounds like. As for effects, very simple, very straightforward. Whacked an EQ, took off the highs and lows, and just ducked something I wasn't a fan of. And then this is what I used for reverb, Valhalla vintage verb, alongside these presets. And on top of that all, I added stereo separation, and the mix was about 66%. Again, I did it so that it didn't stick out too far in the mix, ducked really nicely, and it also helped it blend with the pad quite well, especially when you separate the layers within the stereo separation. It doesn't make sense, but if you get me, you do get me, but it's very, very important to do that. Then, on top of that all, I got myself a bell, like the bell. I mean, like the bell. Like everyone knows what the bell is. All I did with the bell was place it at the start of every 2 bar on whatever the root note was. So as you guys can see down here, it's a G sharp, so that's what the root note was. And up here, C sharp, because that's what the root note was. And without further ado, this is what the bell sounds like. Now, as for the mixer track, all I did was whack an EQ coming off highs and lows, and then a heavy amount of reverb. I'd say, like, we're on about like near 40% mixer, so it was a heavy amount of reverb, but really did the job well, because it kind of dampens the sound, makes it more ambient and further back in the mix as well. And speaking of further back in the mix, I stereo separated this to the max possibility. Like, whenever I use bells in beats where the bell isn't like the forefront of like an aggressive dark beat, I like to literally just stereo separate it to the widest I can, make it super ambient, but it's also there, like you can recognize it. So that's why I did this. And then last but not least, we got ourselves a plugin called Expand 2, and I used a preset called the fingerless bass, and it's in the bass bank, of course. And as for the bass, I literally just came up with an insane pattern, as you guys can see, which is just following the root notes. And on top of that, just to add a bit more humanization, I kind of left a gap in between, as you guys can see, so it doesn't sound like the bass is just constantly playing the whole time. So it doesn't sound like the person playing the bass is like not moving their fingers, because it'll be playing instantaneously. So I left that little gap to add that natural, you know, movement between the strings. So this is what the bass sounds like. And there you have it. As for effects, you guys can see clearly I put no effects, because this bass sounded good how it was, and good sound selection means less work on my end and your end. So keep that in mind. So now we have our final melody, but wait, there's more. The more part of this is I rendered all of the melodies out, and as well as that, I pitched it up 300 cents, taking it from a G sharp minor up to a B minor in a scale. And it makes it sound super dope in my opinion. So without further ado, this is what the full melody sounds like. The Lil Baby's It's Only Me beat. And there you have it. Super dope melody. It's super like grand. It feels Lil Baby-esque. You can just drop a mad flow over this, you know, with his Lil Baby style. I'm not Lil Baby, but Lil Baby would kill this. So let's get into the drums. As for drums, first of all, I'll take you guys through the hi-hats. As you guys can see, it's a semi-basic pattern, but let me run you through it. First of all, bear in mind, as I said before, we are on 1/6 beat, so all of it, you want it to be like a triplet kind of hi-hat going on. All of it are just triplet hats, or else it sounds really off with the melody, in my opinion. Then, on top of that, I added like a little roll here. All this was really just taking the note down 2 semitones, 1, 2. Another roll here, leaving a bit of a gap because it sounded dope, then just lowered the pitch a bit. Added a little roll here again. And then I just add this nice little roll, as well as the cascading velocity, because it makes it sound super nice. But before I play it, just so you're also aware, the whole thing is just a 4-bar looped over. This is what it sounds like. And there you have it. And before I move on, just remember, it is very important. If you're going to make a triplet melody, I highly advise using like the triplet kind of hi-hats, if that makes sense. So let's move on. Next up, we got to have the clap pattern. Very essential, very crucial to the whole thing. And it's a very basic pattern that repeats every 4-bar. All it is the basic pattern, except with a nice little like extra clap, I guess, thrown in there. I'll add that little 2-beat part. So without further ado, this is what the clap sounds like. And I think that's enough said for the clap because it's a basic pattern. So let's move on. Next up, we got ourselves a kick pattern. And as you guys can see, it's making use again of the whole magnet on 1/6 beat or 1/3 beat. And this is the pattern I came up with. Very simple, straightforward, I'd like to think. Except I've got a bit of variation going on towards the end because the 808s do a bit of a madness on the ends. And last but not least, before I show you guys the kick pattern, you want to click Control A and use that scroller wheel, of course, because you want to max your velocities. 3 words, simple. Let's hear this. And there you have it. It may sound a bit off by the way right now, but when the whole drums are playing together with the melody, you'll see what I'm saying. Just trust the process, dog. Just trust the process. Now we've got ourselves an 808 pattern. And remember, you might be wondering, oh, but this is off of scale. But I took it up 3 semitones. So now it's a B minor. So that's why it's not in the G sharp minor scale. So this 808 pattern just follows the kick. However, it's got a few crazy rolls going on over here, and I'll walk you guys through that. All I did was place a note here, and you can even use the 1/3 beat and it'll come up here, as you guys can see. And then to get these kind of rolls going, I actually had to go back onto the magnet, take it to 1/6 step, and then I can apply these. And you guys may be wondering, what is this little note here? So this is what I like to call a cancel note. It makes no sense, but let me tell you what it means. A cancel note is pretty much when you have a beat and your 808 goes into a bass, your 808 bleeds in where the bass plays, and that doesn't sound really nice. So the cancel note is the note that stops the 808 from bleeding into the bass because it's at the end of the 8 bar, but it's so far close to the end of the 8 bar that it doesn't sound anything off, and it just does it really nicely. So that's what the whole point of it is. And of course, to make it work, you want to make sure your velocity is all the way down to 0 for this one thing. But the rest of it, max it out, 100% advised. So this is what the 808 sounds like. And there you have it. And now last but not least, we got ourselves the snare roll pattern. And I of course used the snare for this. And when I made the pattern, the magnet tool was actually on 1/4 step. Not 1/6 beat, not 1/3 beat, but a 1/4 step. And this is how I came up with it, as you guys can see. Nice repeating rolls with little spaces that kind of just copy and paste themselves over, like from here to here. And then I did a bit of a reverse of that here, as you guys can see. It's really simple. Like it looks stupid, but trust me. Without further ado, this is what the roll sounds like. And there you have it. And now without further ado, this is what the drum pattern sounds like. And there you have it. That's a drum pattern for you guys. And of course, you made it to the end of the video, which means I hope you've enjoyed it. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. I hope you guys enjoyed the tips that I've given you throughout it, all the advice and like this little bit of knowledge that I've got. So thanks for watching. Take it easy. Peace.